Hi everyone, welcome back to Prudent Preservations. So, this is why I love canning. Went to the store today and they had all of these strawberries on sale for 48 cents for a container. 48 cents. So, on the agenda today now is to can these 3 flats of strawberries. So certainly I'm going to make a bunch of strawberry jam. I might make preserves, but probably I'm just going to make strawberry jam because that is wonderful, and it's wonderful all year round. So that's probably what I'll do with all of these.
You thought you were safe, huh?
So on the agenda for today is most definitely canning these 3 flats of strawberries. I will probably make all strawberry jam out of it because that is a favorite around here. I might make preserves, maybe not, but definitely strawberry jam is on the list for today. The first thing we have to do with all of these strawberries is get rid of all of those tops, all the green part at the top. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this in order, get the tops off, and then we'll come back and see what we're going to do next. Okay, so we're a little bit further along, and I haven't actually stemmed any. I just wanted to go through the process just a little bit. All I do is pop the stem off the top, which doesn't take much, and so there it's just you just pop that right off. And then just make sure that there isn't anything. You don't want obviously any bad spots or mold or anything like that in your strawberries. And I just plop the whole thing into my pot because I'm going to smash it up when they get hot anyways, and so I don't worry with slicing them first or anything like that because they're going to get smashed up anyways. So when you're making a jam or a jelly, the recipe in general is going to be about 53% sugar and 2% pectin and 45% strawberries or fruit juice, the thing that you're making. It's a lot of sugar. You need that sugar content, and you need it to be in the right balance in order for your jam or your jelly to gel the way that you want it to gel. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a syrup. In order for the pectin to be activated, you're going to activate it with an acid. So I usually use lemon juice. Some people use lime juice, and that's fine. It just needs to be something acidic. So the acid plus the heat is going to activate the pectin, and it's going to combine with the sugar to make the molecule that will become that gel. So that's what we're doing. That's the chemistry that's happening in the pot when we're making our jams or our jellies. So we need the acid, we need the pectin, and we need the sugar. Otherwise we won't have a sugar complex that makes that nice gel that we associate with our jams and our jellies. So we're going to stem all these berries, put them in the pot, and I'll give them a good wash, and then we're going to get on to the next step. So we'll get them hot, and we'll add our pectin, and when we see it foaming, we'll add some sugar so that it has some sugar to make that complex that we need. So really simple process. It doesn't even take a long time. The longest amount of time that you're going to spend is waiting for it to get up to temperature to gel appropriately. So that's what we're going to do. You can come along with me through the process. So all those strawberries, those 3 flats of strawberries, turned into, I got it portioned out. I've got in these bowls about 3 quarts, maybe 3 to 4 quarts each batch. So I have enough to do 6 batches. So roughly 4 quarts, but then some of them had to be thrown away. So there's really more like 3.5 quarts per batch. That's what we're gonna do. All I'm gonna do, and for me, I will do several batches at once, you know, 2, 3, maybe 4. Usually I do 3 batches, and in this case I'll probably do 3 because I can do 3 and 3 and be done. So all I'm gonna do is heat these strawberries up and smash them some, because right now they're just whole berries, you see. And I've got my potato masher. And so I'm just gonna heat them up and then I'm gonna smash them a bit. And then I will add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and a box of pectin. And so we'll go through that at the stove. So all we're gonna do now is smash up these strawberries. They're warm now, and so they have.
Hi, Mom. I need a strawberry. Thank you.
So we have the juices that are starting to be expelled out of the fruit as it heats up. You can see the juices kind of running out now. And so they're going to be soft now, so you can just smash them. I don't slice my strawberries. It's too much work. I have done it many different ways. I have made lots and lots and lots, hundreds of jars of strawberry jam over the years. And I have found that the easiest way to do it is to just take whole strawberries after they've been destemmed and smash them up. So we're just going to smash them up, and we're going to keep the heat on. So once they're at the consistency that you want them to be at, I personally like some big chunks in my jam. So we're making jam and not jelly. If we were making jelly, we would take only strawberry juice so that it would be clear and there would not be fruit pieces in it. But this is jam, so there's going to be lots of fruit chunks. So this is about the consistency that I like. I've got some that are, you know, really big chunks in there, and that's what I prefer. I've got three pots going. And so for each pot now, I'm going to add, now that they're warm, a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice and a box of pectin. That pectin needs the lemon juice to activate. So it needs the acid. Not to mention, acid is good for canning as well. You want it to be a higher acidity. So strawberries naturally have an acidity of about 3 or 3.5. 3 or 3.5. So these, when we're done, are going to be safe for water bath canning. So all we're going to do now is mix that pectin up with that lemon juice, so it's got that acid to help activate it with the heat. And when it starts to bubble and foam up just a bit, then we're going to add our sugar. Okay, there's our 4 cups of sugar. Okay, there's our 4 cups of sugar. And we're just going to mix it in. And now we're going to bring it up to about 220. So we're just going to keep stirring these. And you can see in the pot, it's very foamy. And that's okay. That's normal. That's what it's supposed to be doing. And what we want to do is just kind of keep stirring it. We don't want it to burn on the bottom. Our goal is to get this mixture up to 220 degrees. That's the point where the pectin is going to be able to gel. I've got to stir all 3. I use a candy thermometer, and you can just clip it to the side of the pot and keep an eye. Just clip it to the side of the pot and keep an eye on the temperature. For me, I know that typically speaking, when I get one of them to 220, the other two are probably pretty quickly to follow. It does make it a little bit of a challenge when I'm trying to jar them all up for canning, but so if you pull these off of the heat too soon, you will have a very bright, summer-looking jam. It's going to be a nice and bright red, but often the fruit will separate and float to the top. So I cook mine up until 220, and even though you could pull it off early, maybe have one that's a little bit more runny, and you know, sometimes people do this and they call it freezer jam, and that's great. It's delicious. But I like my jam to be incorporated and fully mixed up, kind of a homogeneous solution, as opposed to something that's going to separate out. For me, I will cook it until it's darker, because then I also know that my fruit isn't all going to float to the top of the jar, and I'll have a bunch of fruit on the top and a bunch of syrup on the bottom. Now, the National Canning Agency, all of the agencies will tell you not to do it, but what you can do if you don't like all the foam that you see here, and it's going to die down, but you see all of this foam that's happening in all of my pots as they get hot. And that's really just air bubbles that's getting trapped in that pectin complex. That's what's causing the foam. You can add a little tablespoon of butter into that pot and help the foam go away. And I do that sometimes, but if you're gonna sell it, if you've got one of the cottage licenses, like in our state, in the state of Arkansas, you can sell your jams and jellies if you've got a cottage license, which I have one. So sometimes I will sell these. If you're gonna sell them, I would not add the butter because it's not an approved recipe, and if you're going to sell it, you need to be using an approved recipe. In this case, for me, I probably am not going to sell these anyways, because usually when I sell it, it's strawberries that we got from the farm and not some that I found on discount at the store. But I could sell it. There's nothing that says I shouldn't or I couldn't. I just know that I probably will end up giving these away. There are many different ways that people check their jams or jellies to see if they're finished. After a while, you can just look at it and know that it's probably ready, probably close to being done. But you can do the spoon method. You can put some on a plate and put it in the refrigerator and let it cool down pretty quickly and see if it's going to gel. The spoon method, you just put your spoon in the freezer for a little bit, let it get very cold, dip it in, pull it out, and see if you can get a streak without it running back together. So I'm going to show you just what I do. It's not either of those, really. So this has a lot of foam. And to me, when it has this much foam, it's probably not ready. So that's kind of what I look at. I look at how much foam is still being made and decide from there. But it doesn't hurt to check and see if it's gelling. So a good jam or jelly is kind of going to tell you when it's ready to be done. And the reason I say that is back here in this back pot, you can see that there's a ton of foam still in the pot. And here in this front pot where I feel like it's probably going to be done sooner, you can see that the foam is starting to just die down on its own. The foam kind of goes away as it gets more incorporated. The strawberries break down a bit and it starts to be more jam-like instead of strawberries and sugar water. So this is really just the pectin activated, doing its job, making this complex, this web of pectin that causes that gel to happen. And so as the air gets out and escapes from the pot, that foam dies down. And so when the foam starts to die down, that's when I'm like, oh, it's probably pretty close to being actually done. So that spoonful that I took earlier, just a couple of minutes ago, if it were ready to go, I would expect it to be pretty gelled up by now. So let's see if I can do this without making a mess. So here's my jam on the plate. And see how it's already running? I can bring my finger through it. But that jam starts to run back together, you see. It doesn't stay separated. And the same thing is true on my spoon. Same idea. It doesn't stay separated. It starts to run back together. It just drips off of the spoon. That is not what we're looking for. Okay, this pot is up to temperature. So now we're going to check it again. This looks more correct. There's not a lot of liquid movement already, and in the pot you can see the foam is not just all over the place the way it is in this pot and this pot here. This one, the foam is starting to die down. So to me, this one looks like it's going to be more closer to done than these other two. But we're going to give it a minute, see if it gels. So this is more like what I'm looking for. I'm not very afraid of making a mess. The jam isn't going anywhere. It's very slowly kind of making its way down the spoon, but it's not a runny mess. If I put my finger in this, it's just jam. It doesn't just run back together. It stays the way that I've put it. So this is ready to go. This is ready to can out. Another indicator that it's ready is that the fruit isn't setting at the top of the liquid. It's actually incorporated into the pot, and it's all a fully mixed solution instead of this one back here that isn't ready yet. Most of the fruit is still sitting at the top. And so the fruit sitting at the top and it being covered in foam is all indicators to me that it's not ready to be put in the jar anyways, because if I did, tomorrow I would just be sad and I'd be reprocessing a bunch of jam. So this one's ready. We're going to jar it up. I have all of my jars sitting out waiting for the jam because I knew this was coming, and so they're already on the counter behind me. And I'm going to take the lids off and we're going to go through it pretty quick. Once I have it jarred up, I'm just going to wipe the rim. And put my lid on. Fingertip tight. Now I will finish up the rest of these batches of strawberry jam, and then we are going to water bath can all of the jam for about 10 minutes. It doesn't take long. It's a very easy process to can them so that they are shelf stable. And then we will have jam all the way until next season. So we're in the final stages of our strawberry jam making today. 3 flats of strawberries, and this is what I have. I have 25 pints of jam. They're very hot right now because I just took the jam out of the pot, put it in the jars. So I have 25 pints. These are not the little jelly jars. These are pints. They're half quarts. So they're the second size up that you would get if you go to the store. You can get the little jelly jars, and then you can get these ones, and then you can get quarts. Or you can get half gallons. But these are pints, and I have 25 of them. So we're going to have some strawberry jam for a while, which is wonderful. So we are going to process these in a water bath canner for 10 minutes. It's super easy. So easy. So I've got the water bath canner behind me, and if you guys have seen my other video, I've got a video on the different canners and their different purposes and the times that you might use this canner or that canner. So right now I am using my Harvest water bath canner. And the reason I picked this and not the digital walk-away ones is because they actually take longer. So they have to cool down, and they're locked down for a period of time. So those types are wonderful if you are going to run one batch of something and you're not coming back, and it's an hour and a half of canning. So pressure canning usually is what I use them for. I don't typically use them for water bath canning. You can. There are directions in there for how to use it if you're going to water bath can. It takes 10 minutes. It doesn't take a long time. On the stove, I can take them out and just go on right to the next batch. And I don't have to wait for it to cool down. I have to wait for the lid to unlock or anything else. So this more of a manual hands-on method is great when I'm going to run a lot of them through it. So if you're going to water bath can, you have to make sure that your jars are 1 inch under the water. So I usually I fill my one rack up, and I process it for 10 minutes, I pull it out, and I replace it with the next set. So overall, it just doesn't take enough time for me to mess with pulling out the digital one and doing all that nonsense. So this is what I have. I'll show you my setup here real quick. So all I have is my pot with my gauge here. When it is ready to go, that little red arrow is gonna get into that green section to let me know that it's hot enough that I could go ahead and put my jars in and start processing them. Not going to mess with that right now. It's not up to temperature. All I'm going to do is go ahead and get them on the rack and get them ready to go. I also am going to add just a splash of vinegar into my canning pot so that my jars don't come out white. It doesn't take much, but that way the sediment stays in the pot instead of on my jars. So I've got 8 jars on my rack right here. So that means I'll just run 3 batches through my canner. This rack has this hook here that if I wanted to, I could take the lid off and just hook this right there, and it would keep the jars nice and hot while we wait for the canner to be hot enough for us to drop the jars in. So they can sit on there just like that. They're not actually submerged in the water. They're just sitting there and staying hot. And that is great, but it takes a bit longer for it to come up to temperature that way. And so because my jars are already very hot from the jam that's inside, this isn't something I'm going to mess with. We can put the lid on, but there's still quite a gap here, and so it's just going to take longer. So I have my leftover jelly from canning here, just from what was, kind of where I made a mess when I was putting the jam into the jars. And I just want you to see the thickness as it has set and cooled now. So it's really very thick when it's actually fully done. It's very thick. And for me, this is what I like. I want my jam, I want my jelly to be thick. I do not prefer my jams or jellies to be thin or watery. I like for them to be something that I spread on my bread and they stay where I put them. I want them to be very thick. Not everybody is that way. A lot of people really like their jelly or their jam to spread out when they put it on their bread. So that's your personal preference. You can cook it for less time and get a thinner consistency, but for me, I really just like it to be thick. So that is what I do, because the great thing about being in your own kitchen is you can make the rules. So we're going to process these for 10 minutes and then we're going to be done. We're going to have 25 pints of strawberry jam. So our jars are in the water bath canner. They're about an inch or so under the water, and they're gonna stay in that canner for about 10 minutes. We're at 10 minutes, and we're just gonna take our jars out. They're already pinging. So now all I'm going to do is move these jars off of this rack and do it all over again for the next few sets until we have all of them processed. We're done. There's the last of the jars, just came out of the canner. I have 25 pints and I'm waiting on one left to seal. So far there's not been any failures. Let me know in the comments if you've made this recipe.